Meeting with an invocation. Commissioner Sleek is going to do our invocation for us this morning.
Precious Father, again, this morning we come before you to thank you for this day that you have given us. How grateful we were when you opened our eyes to see the beauty of a new day.
I can't
We
hear
ask
you.
for your guidance, that you will lead and guide us in the right directions, that we may take care of business this day and where they are all on our heart. We thank you for every person that's present now. Thank you, O God, for all that you have done for us and all that you will do for us. But lead, guide, and direct us that we may do the right thing for your people. This and all I ask in your precious name.
Thank you. This time, I'd like to call the Delaware County Planning Zoning Special Meeting, December the 14th, 2022, to order. First item of business will be approval of minutes from the October 26, 2022 Planning Zoning meeting.
I move we approve the minutes.
Commissioner Manning made a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
Commissioner Collier, a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Minutes pass unanimous. Financial report.
Yeah, I'll make a couple comments on it. We're a third of the way through the year, so 33% of the way through the year. And if you look at our, on the page that is the statement of account activities, where it gives our total revenue, you can see that we're at 29% of our total revenue, and that's really just because through October, we had not yet received the city or the county's contribution for the second quarter. If you look at the four major sources of revenue fees, zone changes, subdivision apps, sound permits, zoning permits, they're all over 33%. So, we're in good shape financially versus the budget. If you look at our expenses for the first 4 months of the year, total personnel, again, if we were right on plan, would be around 33%. It's at 21%, so we're below budget, and that's, of course, because we didn't have a director for a couple of months. Then if you go to the very last page where it gives total expenses, down at the bottom of the page, you can see that our total expenses is 22% of budget. And again, if we were spending at a normal rate, it'd be 33%. So bottom line, once the city and county made their contributions, and perhaps they already have since October, our revenue is above budget and our expenses are below budget.
They have made their contributions. I wasn't aware I needed to send a letter out. So I think we got it a few weeks ago.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Manning. Okay, construction sureties.
Yes, sir. Do we need a motion to approve the financial reports?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think we do.
I make a motion, we accept.
Commissioner Collier has a motion to accept the financial report. And Commissioner Sleet has seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Passes unanimous. All right. Now on to construction sureties.
We have two to renew. So Candlewood Section 8 is asking to renew their letter of credit, an amount of $20,807. This is for the completion of the sidewalks. My understanding is this project is largely done. I believe Jody Sharp is going to be coming in January to ask for a reduction. We had talked last week, because it's a special meeting, we can't change the agenda, but the renewal date was December 1st, but the letter of credit for this is actually beyond the December 1st date. It was written for more than a year. So we still had coverage, but I am just asking them to renew it for an additional year.
So what's on record is not another full year left? I mean, it wouldn't cover next year?
I wish I had written it down. I believe Candlewood is through February or March of 2023, and one of them's through December of 2024.
In any case, what you're saying, it doesn't expire even though we have it on this piece of paper indicating that it
That's
does?
correct. It's
Okay.
because our subdivision regulations require that we renew letter of credit each year.
That is correct, yeah.
Yep.
Has to do with the or variance from the paperwork flow.
Yes.
But we are covered.
We are
Okay.
covered, yes. Do you want
So
to
we
do
need
this
to-
all in
you
one
want-
batch? What's that?
That's up to you. You want to take an action on these one at a time, or you want to take it?
Let's take a vote on this one, then discuss the next one.
Okay. I need a motion.
So moved.
Commissioner Ruby's made a motion to accept the renew letter of credit for Candlewood Section 8.
I second the motion for that.
Commissioner Collier seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes unanimous. Hunt Farm, Section 5.
Yep, very similar request to Candlewood Section 8. They're just looking to renew their letter of credit for a year. Same situation. He is going to be coming back in January asking for a reduction, but as for right now, we are just asking you to renew the letter of credit in amount of $28,231 for sidewalks.
Motion?
I have a motion to accept.
Commissioner Collier makes a motion to accept,
Second.
and we have a second. All in favor? Motion passes unanimous. Shelby Green.
Yep, Shelby Green is asking you to accept their initial letter of credit in amount of $3,690. I'm sorry, $3,669. I just read out the agenda. I'm
$369.
sorry. Yeah, final grading and street-related items includes 10% project contingency from the construction bond estimate and authorize the chairman to sign developer construction contract. So this is a new letter of credit that we're bringing in. So we just need the planning commission to accept it and authorize the chairman to sign the construction contract.
Hear a motion?
So moved.
Commissioner Griffin made a motion.
Second, sir.
Commissioner Ruby, second. All in favor of the motion? Motion passes unanimous. Okay, subdivision approvals. I think we're going to take the first 10 of these. Lisa will go through them, and we'll do we'll make a motion for a preliminary and final approval.
Yes, sir.
We will address the first 10. I think the 11th one and 12th one, the director has some issues we need to address on those. So first 10, we'll take an order.
Okay, and just a reminder that we're doing preliminary and final. We did not have TRS, so any suggestions that you all might see per plat, please note it. First, we have Mr. David Kamick. He's applied for the subdivision of a 0.475 acre parcel of land that is a portion of his 126 Beach Street Danville property. It's being combined with the property of Wyatt and Abney adjoining at 128 Beach Street. This plat's ready for preliminary and final approval, conditioned upon any suggested changes from the commission, if any. Vantage is the surveyor.
The building that, across the property line there is, do we know what's on the other side of that property? Or, and, I mean, you can't move the building, and nobody's asking to move the property line, but they're okay with it, the people that have the property on the other side of that line?
Tom, which spot are you pointing at again?
At the very top there, there's a.
Oh, I see it, the garage there.
I'm not sure that that's an issue that we would address with the plat, whether they would be, I mean, it is.
It's one of those situations that exists, you know, we're surveying an existing boundary line on that north side and an existing building, so, you know, that's a domestic issue, I guess, that, as a surveyor, I'm not gonna get into.
No, I know you're not, and I know you surveyed the property, I'm just. Is this even an issue for us or not?
where the subdivision is not increasing a nonconformity, but merely the plat reflects the existence of one, that's
Right.
not something that would cause us to reject the plat.
And I will say for the garage on the Kamic property, that's an accessory structure, so even though it's showing encroachment into the 10-foot building setback, for accessory structures, it's 5, so it is meeting our requirements.
No other questions on Kamic?
Didn't find anything.
Next, we have the Donald Lee and Linda Moore Estate by Christy Moore, executrix. They've applied for the subdivision of a 57.748 acre parcel of land that is located at 10 Rossell Road in Junction City. The property is being divided into 3 tracts. Tract A at 55.167 acres. Tract B at 0.443 acres, which is going to be a non-conforming tract. And Tract C, a non-conforming tract at 2.138 acres that is to be conveyed with the adjacent property owner, Wilson. The plat's ready for preliminary and final approval, conditioned upon any commissioner's suggestions, if any. The property is zoned ag, AGE is the surveyor. We had some discussion about this after it was turned in, and it's been back and forth between us. All suggested corrections that we had were made. I don't know if you want to explain about the smaller tract.
Yeah, we actually did leave that in with the remainder track. They changed the note. So this track C right here is what we're looking at. What happened is when the road came through, it left this small portion. I believe they wanted to keep this small portion. They sold the remainder of this and they kept this small tract just to keep their barn. So it's actually a part of this larger tract here. And the way they wrote the notes is it's gonna remain with this parent tract here. So we're actually not creating a non-conforming use, or a non-conforming tract. It's going to remain with the parent tract, even though it's kind of an odd situation with the road, but.
Any questions regarding Moore? Okay. We'll move on. The next we have is James and Tanya Lemaster. They've applied for the subdivision of a 0.877 acre parcel of land that is known as 407 West 2nd Street in Perryville. I've been back and forth communicating for some time with this surveyor. It is Curd Surveying out of Mount Sterling. And the plat is ready for preliminary and final approval, conditioned upon any commissioner's suggestions. The property is zoned central business. Like I said, this looks a little odd, but it has been back and forth and all corrections made just via mail where the actual surveyor is in Mount Sterling.
Does this require a purpose statement? I couldn't find one.
Or does it?
Couldn't either. That's a note I had on there as well.
I believe it is on the final, I think yeah, after, I think the packets would have gotten one of the preliminary copies that were sent in, and the final copy that is in the chair's folder to be signed would have the purpose statement added.
Let me look.
We can verify that before we have the chair sign it.
Find it.
It's a single copy. It won't have a clip on it.
I'm not seeing it in this mess.
Mr. Chair, I might suggest that we carve this plat out from the group vote that we're doing, and if we're inclined to offer approval, do it conditioned upon there being a purpose statement on the plat.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay, so next we have John McDermott and others. They have applied for the subdivision of a 33.066 acre parcel of land located at 0 Mitchellsburg Road, Parksville. The McDermotts are creating and off-conveying tract number 2 at 0.116 acres to be combined with Charles McDermott, an adjoining tract. Suggestions were made to note the several structures that are located on tract 1. With that suggestion, the plat is ready for preliminary and final approval, conditioned upon any suggestions you all have. AGE is the surveyor.
So our copy does not yet show those structures, is that what that is?
No, and I do not have a copy yet that has the structures. That is a correction that is waiting to be done.
So if we approve this, it'll be conditioned.
Conditioned upon that suggested correction or addition. Okay. Next, we have Benjamin Hogue and Gary King. They've applied for the subdivision of a 2.841 acre parcel of land that's located at 0 Tennessee Ridge Road in Perryville. This plat creates Tract B, which is 0.634 acres, from the King parent tract, and then combines it with Tract A of Hogue, creating Tract 1A and eliminating the nonconformity of an existing structure. The plat's ready for preliminary and final approval, conditioned upon any suggestions you all might make. AGE is the surveyor. So I do not have any suggested corrections or additions on this, unless you all do. Any comment? No? Okay. Next, we have John Rhodes. He's applied for the subdivision of a 6.7 acre parcel of land from the Nelson Rhodes estate property. The tract fronts Salt River Road in Boyle County. I have no plat suggestions. It's ready for preliminary and final approval, conditioned upon any suggestions you all might make. Vantage is the surveyor. It's a pretty cut and dry division of a farm parcel. No comments? We'll move on. Again, Mr. John Rhodes has applied for the subdivision of a 0.496 acre parcel of land. This is located at 5851 Perryville Road in Boyle County. It's a house and lot in the Nelson Rhodes estate property. It fronts Highway 150. I have no plat suggestions for this plat. It's ready for preliminary and final approval, conditioned upon any suggestions you all might make. Again, Vantage is the surveyor. Okay, with no comments, we'll move on. Logan and Barbara Spoonamore have applied for the subdivision of a 5.832 acre parcel of land. It's located at 5035 Lancaster Road in Boyle County. This plat creates 2 Highway 52 fronting parcels from the Spoonamore parent tract. I have no suggestions for the plat. It's ready for preliminary and final approval, conditioned upon any suggestions you all might have. Vantage is the surveyor. Okay, no comment, we'll move on. Again, Logan and Barbara Spoonamore have applied for the subdivision of a 1.149 acre parcel of land. This is located at 235 Clifton Road in Boyle County. This plat creates a triangular-shaped house lot that fronts Clifton Road. I have no suggestions. It's ready for preliminary and final approval, conditioned upon any suggestions you all might have. Again, Vantage is the surveyor. As you can tell, this house lot that they are cutting off, the house does sit within the setbacks, but he's made a note of it already, so.
Does not,
Pardon?
does not.
It interferes with the setback, doesn't it?
The house sits within what the setback would be, yes.
Okay.
I thought
And
it
it's
says
noted.
Does not.
Yeah.
It
Does
says
not conform to the front yard building setback.
Okay.
It's an existing non-conforming use. We're not creating a non-conformity with this lot.
The key on this one is the left side image there, the triangle is what was cut off, if I remember right. So when the house is within that. Okay. The other edge by the road is the one that's existing.
Yes.
Okay. Lastly, we have Hillendale Apartments LLC. They've applied for the subdivision of a 6.697 acre parcel of land that's located at 200 North Hillendale Drive in Danville. This plat divides tract number 2 into tracts 2A and 2B. I have no plat suggestions. The plat's ready for preliminary and final approval, conditioned upon any suggestions you all might have. Again, Vantage is the surveyor. And this property is zoned RM3.
Well, I'll make a motion that we give both preliminary and final approval for the first 10 subdivision plats that we reviewed today with the, the statement that we have to confirm that there is a purpose statement on the James and Tonya Lemaster subdivision.
And with the addition of structures.
Yes, and the additional structures on the other plat too.
McDermott,
Yes, thank you.
Second.
okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion? Motion passes unanimous.
Thank you.
The next subdivision is Kelly and Ann Griffith, DBA Hidden Springs Properties, have applied for the subdivision of a 3.722 acre parcel of land located at the juncture of Knob Lake and White Road in Junction City, Kentucky. The property is zoned R1A. The planned development and improvements are to be known as Knob View Trace. My only comment on this was, well, I had two comments. The typical street cross-section is not showing sidewalks. Per the subdivision regulations, we do require either 5-foot concrete sidewalks on each side or a 6-foot concrete sidewalk on one side. So the right-of-way is shown to be 50 feet, which meets our regulations. It's just they're not showing sidewalks, so that's going to need to be added in. And also, they didn't know if there were going to be any typical utility easements I could see on the plat, and I'm assuming there would be some side and front yard utility easements, so that's going to need to be added in for, so I would just ask for those two conditions for final plat approval. Are there any questions on that?
I had one question or comment, just curiosity. I'd noted the sidewalk also, but the other part of it, in the darker shade area, is a sidewalk in that area? I assume that it is.
Yeah, where's the sidewalk?
Or is it on the
Is it going out of
properties?
the street or out of the houses?
Well, the 50-foot right-of-way is what's required, so they are showing enough right-of-way to add in the sidewalks. I'm not sure why the typical street cross-section wasn't showing it.
What do you think?
So it shouldn't affect the layout at all, but.
Right, the
Please
gray
state your
area.
name.
Dale Shepperson with AGE Engineering.
Thank you, sir.
The gray area does represent the dedicated right-of-way. If you all will remember, we just did another one of these called Hidden Court about probably 4 months ago. And at that time, we did not include the sidewalks on that subdivision, and we were going to do this one the same way, under the same guidelines that we did the last one. Of course, at that time, Steve was here, and it may have been 5 months ago, whenever we did Hidden Court. But we wanted to do, the owners wanted to do this division the same way as we did the Hidden Court one, which it's basically the same thing, about 500 feet with a cul-de-sac. And that's the reason we're not showing the sidewalks on the typical section.
I guess I was thinking it should be there now. I remember doing that review back then. But we had some other reasons I don't recall at this point why we talked about it, that topic then. I'm just thinking in light of this one being a different location, different site.
Is the sidewalk going to be in the gray area?
Well, if there were going to be sidewalks there, they would be between the gray area and the front setback. Or,
Well,
well, typically they would be on the inside of the property line, so yes, they would be in the gray area.
well, is the county or city taking over this for maintenance and things, or is this a private drive?
No, the city would take over maintenance, or county, whichever.
Yeah. Well, I think you need to build it to the standards that we have. That includes the sidewalks.
Is there a request then to vary from the zoning ordinance to not have a sidewalk? Is there a request come to the commission to not put in a sidewalk?
You mentioned 5 months ago, I don't recall that one, so refresh our memories on what we did.
It was on Hidden Court off of East Grubs. I think it was either 13 or 14 lots that was created. I'm thinking it was June, possibly May.
I just don't remember the detail. I remember the name comes out, but I don't remember the detail enough to tell you. That's why I was asking.
And at that time, we were under the impression that we did not have to do sidewalks, so we did not. And that one was approved, so this one is basically the mirror image of that, only not as many lots.
So we,
Before we changed, was that before we did our, that was the last one.
I think that's the last one in the older standard.
Before we updated the ordinance.
That's right.
Yeah.
That was the last one before we updated the ordinance, and we discussed it. They got it in before the ordinance change. So
Okay.
we wouldn't have to do the sidewalks.
That would be the only reason I would have considered going that way, because it was part of the previous generation, but we're clearly in the next time interval here.
In the ordinance, unless I'm mistaken, the ordinance says you gotta do that.
So the ordinance has been passed since June, since July?
I think we set an effective date for midsummer. That strikes me as correct, but the requirement's there now, and we have never really had a procedure from variances or waivers of subdivision requirements.
Oh, I was just expecting in my mind, and I think you're right, Tom, that's probably the history of it.
No, I
You'd have to
remember
check
that.
those, yeah.
They got it in before the ordinance changed.
Okay.
I have a question. The shaded area that's gonna be the entrance and this stuff here, where is Kentucky Avenue in?
Kentucky
Avenue is
Avenue.
It'd actually be right here.
using Kentucky Avenue as the
No, no, this would come off of,
entrance?
this would come off of White Oak. Oh, not White Oak, but.
Not
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 Blue.
Blue.
Not
Not
Blue,
Blue.
yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
I was just confused, I didn't see Kentucky Avenue, and I thought, wow,
Yeah, this development does not touch Kentucky Avenue.
okay, it backs up to those houses that are already there on Kentucky Avenue, obviously.
This one does not.
This one does not?
No, this one does not back up to the houses that's on Kentucky Avenue. This is at the intersection of White Oak and Knob Lake.
But the entrance there is on Knob Lake.
The curve and the hill.
Slight hill, yeah, a little grade.
The entrance is on Knob Lake.
Yes.
Well, back to the sidewalk issue, I mean, I think that we have to go with the new ordinance. I mean, the new, we're all nodding our heads and saying that there's a new ordinance.
Right.
And I think it's very hard for us to issue a waiver for the sidewalks if it hasn't been asked for. And even then, it would have to be man, I don't know that we'd waive that now, because it's in the law.
That's my thought, Steve, I said they could change the ordinance. I'm not
Could you please state your name?
Kelly Griffin.
Thank you.
We're going to face the same issue on the next plat, by the way, I think.
I think he will too.
No,
Because I recall it's on both of those.
They are showing
They're
sidewalks
showing
in the
sidewalks on this one.
typical street cross-section on the White Oak,
Okay.
or on Dogwood Trace, sorry.
So the sidewalks on this are gonna need to be, if I understand correctly, between the red line, outside the gray area, and inside the setbacks of the building, is that correct?
No,
They would be inside the gray
So
area.
they would be inside the gray area. So there
Yes.
would be 40-foot wide road and 5-foot sidewalk on around the outside of that.
It will
Four.
be a
4-foot sidewalk or five, whatever would be. in it.
five. No, it's a 20-foot wide street, not a 40-foot wide. It's a one lane on each.
One lane street.
no.
It's,
Well,
two lanes.
it's 2 lanes, it's two-way
Okay, yeah,
traffic,
that's
but
what I'm
one
saying.
lane, yeah.
So,
The way the street standards are written, we do only require a 50-foot right-of-way, so they are showing the appropriate amount of right-of-way.
There's enough space to
There's
put
enough space
sidewalks
to
in
put
here.
sidewalks,
It's
they're just not showing it.
We don't have a cross-section to
Yeah.
indicate that's gonna happen.
Put sidewalks in, you still got 40 feet left.
No.
If you do 12 feet of lane, or gutter section, 2-foot grass sections, and the sidewalk, it gets you out close to the edge of the right of way, but you're not crossing it without.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we only require 10-foot
Correct.
wide lanes, so there's sufficient space to do sidewalks within the
Right,
50-foot right-of-way designated.
I think on this plat, this cross-section is, although it's above there, but the cross-section would have to reflect the sidewalk is what I'm looking for. I'm expecting that's all that's needed, and then the sidewalk will be there. I don't think it takes any more space than what I see on the paperwork.
That's correct.
Commissioner Douglas is a representative from Junction City. I'd
Yeah.
like to hear her opinion on the sidewalks.
My opinion is, we've already been in a situation where the street wasn't wide enough, and there was no sidewalks or curb or anything going in. I just hate to see that happen again. In this situation, and the ordinance says sidewalks, we need sidewalks.
If we need to put sidewalks, we will put sidewalks.
Why'd you put them in this next one? Jumping ahead.
Yeah.
And then the ordinance gives them an option. They can either do 5-foot sidewalks on both sides, or they can do 1 6-foot sidewalk on one side. So that's something that you guys can make a decision on, but we're just gonna need to see one or the other in the final
Okay.
with corrections.
And we'll discuss that and decide which route they want to go, and we'll show that on the road plan.
See, I think if I recall on the plat, it's just that image reflecting that. There's nothing else on this page that I've noted that we need to be concerned about.
No,
just curious.
no, the lot layouts meet all our requirements, everything else meets our requirements. They are showing utility easements in the typical lot layout. I would just like another note on there, but they're already showing it, so it's nothing major.
Okay.
It's-
So what do we have to ask them to do to make this compliant with ordinance?
They'll just
just
need
to
to update
comply.
the typical cross-street section, and they'll have to show it in their construction plans when they submit.
Either show sidewalks on both sides, 2 5-foot sidewalks or 1 6-foot sidewalk.
Yes, that's correct.
I mean, it's a loop, so.
Yeah, we don't require it within the cul-de-sac, so they'll just need to show it on the, I'm not sure why, but.
I never understood that either, so, okay.
We'll just have to decide whether the owners want to put one 6-foot or two 5s. I would imagine it'd be 1 6, but
I really think we ought to send it back with you and bring it back next time and decide then, review it and approve it
I
or
mean, we
disapprove.
can, he said we'll put the sidewalks in. All we got to do is change it on the typical section
Okay, so,
of this plat.
so this commission needs to decide whether just to put that condition on this particular one, approve and disapprove it. Okay, that's right.
This is a preliminary approval, so I'm going to condition it just like you did the others.
Thank you.
I make a motion to approve with that condition.
Commissioner Davenport's made a motion to approve with conditions, sidewalk condition and the utility easement note added.
I'd like to
Second.
second that motion.
Okay. Commissioner Collier seconds. Any further discussion?
I have one question. When they go in and put the sidewalks in, either both sides or one side, what's that gonna do to the width of the street?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Well,
You're going on the inside of the red?
the easement is already there for the sidewalks. They just didn't put the sidewalks in.
Because the city won't accept it if
Yep.
it's not.
Yeah, the right-of-way is sufficient to fit sidewalks in, so it won't change the layout at all.
Any other questions? Comments? All right. All in favor of the motion? Motion passes unanimous.
Kellyanne Ann Griffith, DBA Hidden Springs Properties, have applied for the subdivision of an 8.396 acre parcel of land located at 0 White Oak Road, Junction City, Kentucky. The property is zoned R1A. The planned development and improvements to be known as Dogwood Trace Phase 2. I had less comments on this one. My only comment, sorry, let me get this on the slide here. For the typical cross-street section, they are showing 4-foot width sidewalks. So again, it's either going to need to be 5-foot width or 6 feet on one side to meet our requirements. And for the pavement surface, they have a 1-inch surface shown. It needs to be 1.5 inch. And for the base, they're showing 1.5 inch base, and it needs to be a 2.5 inch base. But otherwise, the lot layouts, everything meets all of our requirements.
Of course, we can get those changes made to the typical section.
And again, that wouldn't affect the right-of-way width or layout or anything. It's just a matter of fixing it on the typical cross-street section.
This is the one that backs up to the Kentucky Avenue lots.
I agree with you, if we can get the cross-section to the latest guidelines. Other than that, I didn't see anything else on here either.
Yep.
So I'm hearing we'll make a motion then to approve both preliminary and final approval on this particular plat with the stipulation that the street cross-section be revised to show a 5-foot sidewalk.
For 2 5-feet or 1 6-foot?
Like 2 5-foot or 1
There's
6-foot.
also gravel or something.
Yes, there's a condition for the gravel cross-section too.
The
Changing the
surface.
depths of the pavement.
It's our latest.
And the depth of the payment.
I'd like to second that motion then.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Manning and a second motion. All in favor? Motion passes unanimous.
Thanks.
Thank you. Moving forward, we have a public hearing. Newcomb Oil Company LLC has applied for approval for a site plan amendment on a tract of land containing approximately 3.035 acres located at 0 Summit Drive. This property is zoned highway business. Representatives of Newcomb.
Okay. This is technically correct. I didn't have any comments on it. Is there any questions?
I just have a question. What is this structure right here?
I'm assuming that's the dumpster. That's how I.
Please state your name and address.
Brad Miles, Newcomb Oil Company, 951 Withrow Court, Bardstown, Kentucky.
Thank you.
Yes, that's just a dumpster back there.
Oh,
Good eye, Terry.
all right.
Over there on the left-hand side, that's a future road then? That's not part of this at this point?
That's correct. That's Miss Davis's road that she's going to be building.
So what we'll have is we'll have a road across the top, Summit Drive there, and then going on the right side, of course, that's the 127 highway.
Yes, sir. And we're showing improving Summit Drive. We're widening it out quite a bit.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, is because it looks to be a lot wider than what I,
Yeah, if you see that dotted line in the middle of Summit Drive.
Right.
That's where it is now, and then we're widening it out, I would guess 14 feet wider than what it is now.
I think we discussed that.
yeah, that's all been discussed, but that is reflected here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's good. Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Now, in this one, where we moved the entrance back into your business there, because we broke the pile up here
Yes,
on
ma'am.
127?
And then from the previous, from where we agreed on last time, we've actually moved it further back because we moved the canopy around and we made the building a little bigger. But we moved it further back because we thought about it more too, and we wanted more room, more space there than what we had agreed on.
I think it's a really good move.
I think so too. We also took away another entrance on Summit Drive.
Yeah.
We had 3 before, and now we showed just 2. Because our trucks can use, that future roadway or vehicles can use that future roadway. So.
But that was a recommendation that was made previously as well, was it not?
Yes, sir.
Is there an existing or a planned traffic through into this?
No, there's not at this time. We've gotten our permit from the state, for the encroachment onto the bypass there. So,
The state's good without any addition to that intersection or?
well, we're widening out that intersection and also taking the hump out of it. And it showed there, it's kind of hard to see, but, right now there's a big hump when you drive up there, and we're gonna flatten that out to where it's a nice gradual slope. And we're making it to where, 3, it's a lot wider, so trucks will be able to make that turn a lot better.
Should help the flow.
In the original, we had, when you had an entrance, what direction that is, east,
Okay, east, and toward the bypass. We were concerned about, traffic, coming out of where Strip Pal is from that road. And we added some stop signs. Is that gone now?
We'll have to put in stop signs, about how we agreed to it last time. I believe it was, we were gonna put one on Summit Drive before you got to that,
Somewhere, I can't remember.
that thoroughbred,
Yeah.
where thoroughbred comes through. We're gonna put a stop sign there so that
So
they
that
can
we
get
can-
out.
Okay.
Uh,
All right.
There's also discussion about flow for going in and coming out so that we didn't have a backup on, Summit for people trying to ingress into the gas station, blocking, essentially making a big backup on 127. So we had discussed having it flowed so that they had ingress at the back. Is there any discussion about that? I mean, we had quite a bit of discussion about that
Oh,
at a previous meeting.
we did talk about it, and the solution to it was the stop signs, I believe, so that the thoroughbred traffic wouldn't get hung up in that intersection, was what, is my memory of it.
Also, that opening is to the left of the page, west a little bit into the station itself. It's the opening, the first one into theirs, it's actually a little further left to the west from where it was, which helps you a longer distance before you get to the stop sign.
Right.
Just a reminder, if I may, that this has been approved, and all the conditions that were added to were approved. All that they had to do actually was move the entrances as they had
Yes.
agreed to do.
Right.
But they instead decided to move the entire structure.
Right.
So that's the only reason they had to come back for an amended
Right.
site plan.
Once we moved the entrance back further, we realized that, the structures, the way they were, wasn't the best for the traffic flow on our site. So we moved the canopy around and made it to where it just flows better on our property, is why we amended it.
So they basically made adjustments to our adjustments we requested them to make.
That's great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank you for your adjustments to our request.
You're welcome.
And attention to them. Make a motion that we approve this.
A second.
Commissioner Boyd's made a motion, Commissioner Manning a second. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. All in favor of the motion? Motion passes unanimous. Thank you. Danville Christian Academy, Inc. has applied for a zoning map amendment on 24.051 acres located at 2170 Shakertown Road, Bull County, from agricultural to institutional campus development district.
Good morning, everyone. I am Melanie Thornberry. I'm an attorney here in Danville, and I am here representing my client, Danville Christian Academy. There are a number of board members present here in the back of the room and over here, as well as our current headmaster and our incoming interim headmaster, to help address any questions that you all may have. If I am unable to answer those, and AGE, the surveying company that put together our plan, is also here. I believe that you all have in your packet, my written application on behalf of my client. So I'm going to start out a little differently than you all are probably used to, and want to ask you all that before we delve into the why that we are seeking this zone change, I want you all to, in your minds, go on a car ride with me from here to where Danville Christian Academy is located, because I want everyone to have in their minds clearly what you pass as you approach the property and also what you pass after the property. So if we were to begin here at City Hall, we'd head east on Main Street. We would pass through the heart of downtown, full of shops, restaurants, banks, and other businesses. When we reach that stoplight at 3rd Street on Main, we're going to turn north to begin to head out of the heart of downtown, and we're going to pass more storefronts, more businesses. We're going to pass the public library, and we're going to drive through a residential area that is very typical of downtown, very walkable, grid-like area made up of single-family residences and homes that have been converted into some apartments. We're probably going to get stopped at the red light there at Lexington Avenue because I have yet to figure out how to get through it on a green light on the first attempt. We're then going to continue heading north out of downtown and go through a substantial residential area made up again of a mixture of single-family and apartments. Just as we start down the hill there on Shakertown Road, we're going to pass a rehabilitation center nursing home facility. Then we're going to start to see some subdivision developments. We're going to pass St. Michael's Crossing. We're going to pass Candlewood. We're going to pass Streamland. And then we're going to encounter Brook Cove, which has a gas station, a convenience store, some storefronts, I believe it's an auto repair shop. Then we're going to also pass Colonial Heights subdivision. So still a residential area, a lot of homes, and some public facilities that benefit the area. Just as you crest the hill on Shakertown Road, having passed the radio station that has long been there, you're going to see DCA's property on the right-hand side, almost immediately adjacent to the roundabout. It's a 25-acre tract. It currently has on it a 2-story school building, playground, parking lot, an athletic field in the rear, parking areas, a drive-in and a drive-out. And then if you continue north after having taken the roundabout, you will encounter 2 more subdivisions, Mox Creek on one side and the Hunt Farm on the other. Then you're going to reach Gwen Island residential area. Then you're going to start to see some true opening up to farmland and the North Point Prison Grounds as you head north out of our county. Now back at the roundabout, if you were to have gone east or west, that's the 2168 connector, you would be able to hit Lexington Road, Highway 34, and head out of town, or you could hit the Harrodsburg Road and also head out of town. So you're back at this 25-acre tract of DCA, located right there at 2 major thoroughfares for our county. And frankly, this is a perfect location for a school campus because a number of faculty, staff, and students travel in from outside of our county to attend school at DCA. This keeps the school traffic out of the busy downtown residential area, downtown business area, easily accessible for students, staff, and visitors to the campus. And all of this is important in the zone change that we are seeking because DCA has, in the last 3 to 4 years, experienced a significant growth in our student population. DCA owns the 25 acres that you see here that currently has those buildings on it that I mentioned.
So
And that is-
this is the image of what it is today.
That is an image of what it has more than what is currently
Okay.
there. I believe
this is-
your director's pointing out what is currently there.
This is showing proposed, but the existing is this building here and this building here and this parking area with this entrance.
Okay, but those proposals are not part of the conversation today, or yes?
They are. This is part of the general development
Okay,
plan that they submitted.
because I didn't have this before the meeting, so I'm looking
Oh,
at it.
okay, yeah.
Can I ask a question?
You may, certainly.
This entrance to 2168 currently connected back to the parking lots?
It is, yes.
And this drawing is actually inaccurate in that sense?
We put in a connector from 2168 back to the current building earlier this year due to concerns about the traffic flow. We wanted safety for anyone out there.
So I've never been out in that area when the school let loose. Do people exit out of that then?
No, people come onto the campus from 2168. They loop up in front of our current building, which is the gray
Yeah,
bottom left. And then they exit onto 34, and it is required that everyone make a right-hand turn when exiting the property, go back to the roundabout and utilize that roundabout in order to then go the direction that they need to go.
okay, because when I drove around on the main road out there, not on 2168, the other one, I didn't know that that was a right only or left only. I couldn't, so I'm learning things.
Right, so that
Okay.
is something that the school requires. It's been communicated to all parents multiple times. We also have law enforcement officers who act as or do work for the school in their capacity as SROs. They are out there helping to direct traffic and keep people moving that way so
Now,
as to
is-
avoid a left-hand turn coming out of the
The
campus.
officers are not on 2168, are they?
No, they are not
Okay.
on
Okay,
2168.
that's fine.
So is that an entrance and an exit both on 2168?
It is only an entrance onto the campus on 2168. Yes, sir.
I'm Douglas Gooch, I'm.
Yes.
engineer. Jim, that drawing you were looking at was just a Google Earth photo. You couldn't see the line, so if you go back to this drawing, that's pretty much where they have created their entrance into their parking area now. Pardon me, so I didn't want you to think we're trying to hide something. We actually have shown that road and it's part of the future plan to be developed as a permanent access. They just had such a demand. 34 was becoming completely dangerous to get in and out of it, so they tried to come up with a traffic control plan that flows through, so we don't have people turning left off 34 on that.
Yeah, and
off over east.
that is one of the topics, I'm sure Jim is, but I'm very concerned about that safety of getting in and out.
It's 33.
33.
Yeah, no, that's okay, they get confusing. But yes, actually, the school has previously, before my time, sought to have a stoplight added there on Shakertown Road, because you do come over a bit of a hill, and there's our, what used to be entrance and exit, it is now only exit. But the state, as you all know, since it is a state highway, the state has to approve a stoplight, and that has not yet occurred. So when the school year began this year, and there was a significant, as I mentioned, increase in student body population, this plan is what was devised to alleviate traffic concerns and help the traffic flow. And it has, I will say, as a parent who takes her children to school there, it has made a tremendous difference. It is a much smoother process, and it is a safer process now, both coming into the campus as well as leaving the campus.
Now, during those interim times when a parent comes in the middle of a school day, do they go in and out of the 2168 entrance?
I
have any
always
idea?
do.
Okay, I'm fine with it, I just was curious.
Yes.
My granddaughter from Lincoln.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I come in that way, but when it's not congested.
Yeah, when it's
I
not
think you're
congested,
kind of
just
free to do whatever you want.
take whatever you're, okay. that's
right.
Okay,
Depending on where you live.
yeah.
Having the roundabout right there is extremely useful. Instead of a four-way stop, a roundabout really keeps that traffic
Don't get me on the roundabouts.
flowing.
Did you get stuck in one?
Couldn't figure out how to get out, Steve.
So when Danville Christian Academy bought this property in 2004, it was zoned agriculture. That was before the 2168 connector. It was before a lot of what has grown out that way, and it has remained zoned agriculture. In 2008, when the original or the current school building was built, a school was a permitted use in the agriculture zone under our zoning ordinances. That is no longer the case. When the new ordinances, or newer ordinances, I should say, were adopted, this institutional campus development district was developed and included, and that is the zone that we are seeking to become because of what the already existing use is. So when you all have a zone change request before you, one of the things that you need to be able to find is that the current or existing zone is not the most appropriate for the property, and that the requested zone change is in compliance with the comprehensive plan as well as the future land use map. When I was reading through what the intended purposes are for our current zone, which is agriculture, and I included this in my written application that you've got in front of you, our zoning ordinance states that intended purposes in an agriculture zone are, one, to maintain, preserve, and enhance the prime agriculture lands of Boyle County. Also, to protect the decreasing supply of prime agriculture lands in Boyle County. Third, to discourage premature urban growth on land that is best suited for agriculture purposes. And to also minimize urban-type development in rural areas until urban-type services and utilities can be provided. Contrast that to the plan's defined use and purpose for the Institutional Campus Development District, which states that this district is established with the purpose and intent of providing for the continued and future use, expansion, and new development of academic campuses, religious campuses, and healthcare facilities. The district is designed to promote the varied uses associated with such institutions while maintaining the overall design integrity of a traditional campus setting. When one looks at these two statements of intended purposes for the current existing zone of agriculture and the zone we are seeking of Institutional Campus Development District, DCA is a clear example of being best suited and more appropriately zoned institutional campus development. It is not situated on land that is best or prime for agricultural use. It is only 25 acres, and while to me, 25 acres is a lot, for farming use, it's not much at all. And the fact that it lies now at the intersection of two major roadways, both of which are traveled extensively on the day-to-day, it's not suited for agriculture use. The geographical area of Danville Christian Academy's campus is most appropriate for its current and existing use of a school campus. And as I have mentioned, DCA's student body has increased significantly in the last few years. As of our recent board meeting of just this week, we have a student population count of just over 300, so 303 students. That's a lot. I think it's almost triple. It is triple where we were 5 years ago. The school administration receives a large number of calls for people interested in visiting and possibly enrolling students there. We do have wait lists for all of the grades, and DCA serves students preschool through 12th grade. So we anticipate that we are going to grow a bit more, maybe a lot more. We'll see how that plays out. But because of our anticipated growth, and because we are currently at capacity, Danville Christian Academy wants to be able to utilize its property to expand and further develop some of what has not yet been developed on its campus. And when I say developed, the key is to remember that under our zoning ordinance, when you are zoned agriculture, the percentage of your surface space that you can use is significantly less than what you can use under Institutional Campus Development District. And by use, it may stay green, but it'll be an athletic field instead of an agriculture field. It will allow for more parking, which DCA, excuse me, needs. And you will see here, this is a conceptual plan that AGE has done for DCA to help illustrate where the school hopes to get. There's no immediate plan to build all of this, but they want to have the ability to best serve the student population as it exists and also as it grows with a true campus atmosphere. Some of the things that DCA would like to be able to add include a separate preschool building, and that is shown, preschool and kindergarten it may be, building shown on the very bottom left. Yes. We have an existing gym that has one full court for basketball, volleyball, and other events that they also use for chapel with the students, and it has good seating, but we want to have the ability to expand that because our athletics programs are growing. We also would like to be able to host athletic events because those do generate income for the school. And the most current and immediate need is for a separate high school building. That is shown there on the top as the largest gray, thank you, space. Right now, the two-story building that houses our school houses preschool through 12th grade on 2 floors. And it is crowded. It's busy. So to have the separate high school building will alleviate some of that crowd and allow there to be multiple classrooms for the different primary and middle school ages so that we can expand the student body there. So based upon these reasons, the current zone of agriculture is just not the most appropriate or best suited for DCA. The institutional campus development zone is. The other element that you all have to consider and look at is whether or not this proposed change is in compliance with our comprehensive plan, and our future land use map, and it is. Currently, that property there that is all of DCA's property is designated on our future land use plan as public and semi-public use. Under our comprehensive plan, that use is defined as a land use that consists of major public or semi-public institutions, including city and county public schools, other schools, and colleges. That is exactly what DCA's campus is. It is a school, and it is included in our future land use map, along with Center College, Kentucky School for the Deaf, Danville High School, and the Woodlawn Boyle County Middle School and High School campuses as being designated as a public or semi-public future use. The Institutional Campus Development District is the better and more appropriate zone for DCA's property, and it is in total agreement with the future land use designation and the future land use map. What's in?
Ma'am, who owns the property just to the north of there
To the north of our property, but south of the connector. That is the same owner that lies on the north side of the connector. The connector cut that piece in half, and that is owned by First Southern
Lending.
Funding, LLC.
Lending. They'll be next, we have an application for them on the agenda today.
Yes, and
This is a,
They're good with the football field?
well, I knew that question was going to come up. So when that,
Glad to be able to help.
Right, thank you. So when that conceptual plan was developed, we've had some discussion informally with that property owner. We do not have a contract with them. We are not here acting as agent for them. What DCA shows on its conceptual plan, we can pull back onto what exists currently as our property. So we can make everything fit on our property. Just depends upon what happens later down the road. But I don't want you all to be under the misperception that we have any type of formal agreement with that owner, because we do not. AGE did both properties, maps, and plans, and showed that conceptually, but
so the only thing we're really talking about at this
is the
point
zone change for
is,
DCA.
Is the zone change for the piece of property that you currently own.
That is correct. That is what we are talking about, just the zone change that DCA is seeking so that it can continue to use the property it already owns in the manner that it already owns, in the way that DCA determines will best meet the needs of its students. And we like the idea of having various buildings placed on our campus so that preschool's in one area, elementary and middle is in another, high school and maybe the older middle is in another building, the gymnasium. There's a multi-purpose building that we hope to be able to add at some point. We have an ROTC program that is new and is growing, and to have a building that they could use is a hope for us down the road, as well as our sports programs continue to grow, we want to be able to provide the athletic fields for those that come to the school and build a program. And so I want to stress to you all, as well as to the public that's here probably wondering what DCA's plan is with this. DCA is not going to be doing anything new with its property. This simply allows DCA to be flexible and to continue to develop the use of its property as it already uses it in a manner that the school feels meets its students' needs the best. And to not have the limitations on the surface use that exist under the agricultural zone. So, I hope I have clearly articulated for you all how the institutional campus development district is the more appropriate and the better zone for DCA's property, as well as how we are in compliance with the comprehensive plan and the future land use map for our piece of property. And I am happy to answer any questions you have.
When did the DCA property start or exist? When did you start that? How old is it?
Danville Christian Academy bought this property in 2004.
Yeah.
And prior to that, the school had existed in multiple locations in churches. And what the school wanted to do was to be able to have one campus where all of the students could be together and be able to serve more, because we were frankly running out of room in the basements of the churches that let us exist there.
And it's great. Mine was just making sure I understand the starting point, and it's pretty
Yes.
interesting, because it ties into the history of our planning and zoning
Yes.
activities.
And 2008 is when the current existing building, school building, was built on this property, and the school moved to the one location and
Okay.
was able to consolidate.
Yeah, and it's been there quite a while. I just lost track of time.
Right, I
Thank you.
understand. Any other questions?
This is a public hearing. Once the
Once I
applicant
finish.
is done, then the public can come and make comments, both for
And against.
So.
Yes, sir.
If you're finished with your comments and the commission is finished with their questions, we will open it up to the public.
Sounds good. All right, well, I thank you all very much for your time and for your consideration of
I have one
this.
question.
Yes, sir.
This entrance right here.
Yes.
You put a football stadium right here. Can you state that you have no future plans of ever enlarging that entrance or expanding it or making it both an exit and an entrance, especially to get people out of and into a football game?
We have not discussed that at all. To be completely candid with you, the idea of a football team at DCA is just that. It's an idea. I don't know that they will ever actually need a stadium or a full football field. It was just in the interest of showing you all what our ideal development would be. We showed that. Now, that entrance and exit, or excuse me, that entrance already existed from the time 2168 was put in. That was approved by the state, that was stubbed in. And the flow of the traffic has been something that DCA developed as being what serves the campus best and the public as far as the safety component. So certainly if it ever got to a point that we put in a football stadium and had a competitive football team that was bringing in guests and visitors, we would address that at that time because the safety is a big priority.
Here's my concern, Melanie, I think what DCA has done for Danville is great. I mean, we have a private school that's growing tremendously. Obviously, people want to send their children there or it wouldn't keep growing like it is. And I think the community should support public or private schools based on the public's demand for what they want. If you come in and said, we're gonna buy this piece of property or have this piece of property and have our entrances out onto 33, I'd be tickled to death. I live in the east end of the county, and 2168 gives me about half as much time to get to the west or southern part of the town as it does through town.
Right.
So the last thing I want is a bunch of stoplights around 2168. Life
Yeah.
has occurred around the south end of
Right.
town.
Right.
So,
Well, Mr. Boyd, we might let you negotiate with that landowner to the south of us. See if you can get that worked out. And of course, as you well know, in order to add any kind of entrance or exit onto a state highway, which Highway 33 is as well, that would have to be approved by the state after a traffic study and that sort of thing.
Is that an official entrance to the school on 2168? Does the state recognize that as an entrance
Yes.
to your school?
Yes.
that's the only, correct me if I'm wrong, it's the only entrance that isn't an agricultural entrance and exit onto 2168, other than 33 and 34. The rest of them are entrances approved by the state, but they just go into an agricultural field.
They do, with the exception of what would lie to the east of us, which is the property that the city has a lagoon on.
Yeah.
And the city has an entrance there that I would imagine is used more than a general agriculture use. But again, as far as a zone change goes, the entrance exists currently and is used as it is used, and it's not going to be affected by
But
the zone
doing
change.
the zone change to the ICD ends up in the plans in the future, more traffic in and out of that entrance. We just noted that.
Well,
I
it would be
agree,
more traffic
Because you
in
just got a
because
natural growth of campus.
we do have a natural growth of
Yeah.
campus. And yes, we are hoping to have a
And
continued
that's
growth,
what
so there
you
would
said-
be
You
more.
talked about it earlier. That's-
Right,
this whole
more
thing is
coming
To get a
in.
better layout so that you can grow, which is a great
Right.
idea. And Commissioner Boyd, I agree with him. You guys, folks have done it great.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have nothing further, if the
Okay.
commission has nothing further for me.
No.
All right.
At this time, we'll open it up to the public. Anyone who wants to speak in favor of the zone map amendment, please come forward. State your name and address.
Just had a question.
Come forward.
Well, let's do the, if anyone wants to speak in favor of the zone change, please come forward. If anyone wants to speak in opposition of the zone change, please come forward.
Let's go back to the favor.
Okay. Anyone who wants to speak in favor, come forward and state your name and address.
My name's Michael Thrasher, I live at 75 Wynn Island Circle. The DCA is a great neighbor. I mean, I drive that road 3 or 4 times a day. So it's always been a great neighbor. I still have a question. So I'm for the zone change. My question would be, is there, when you consider the zone change, is there any consideration or is there a requirement for an environmental impact study? Because that, right behind them is Spears Creek, which goes right into Harrington Lake. So, that's my question.
Mr. Thrasher, that's a matter that might be considered more at the construction plan phase rather than the conceptual kind of discussions we're having right now. This is more bird's eye view, but when they get down to actually building some of the things they're showing on their site plan, that's when we get in more into the details of flow.
And does planning and zoning, the one that requires or initiates that environmental impact study, or is that part of the permitting process for construction?
I think those are both the same thing. It's planning and zoning handles it as part of the permitting process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Now, anyone who wants to speak in opposition to the zone change, please come forward and state your name.
My
and
name
address.
is Neil Eklund. I live at 130 Winterhawk Road in Danville. I don't have a problem with the development per se. I have a major problem with that entrance onto 2168. That is the little step to open it for everybody else to develop along that road, 2168. That road was, as Mr. Boyd points out, that road was put in to access the agricultural area for the farmer who had it. It was not meant to access a public area where the public is invited to come. I have seen people come out of that road, it defeats the purpose of 2168. It is opening the door to 2168 becoming something like 150 south of Danville. Defeats the purpose.
That entrance was already there, correct?
Yes.
For the purpose of accessing the property.
It's really not part of a zoning
It's not.
category.
It's a pre-existing matter.
Right,
And
that
it
was already
was-
decided and approved by the
And
state.
the state put those entrances to the property.
May I
Yes, ma'am, you may
share with
address
you all
that.
what Mr. Gooch, our surveyor, just pointed out to me, is that it's a 1,200-foot entrance. It is not going to be increased from that. It is approved by the state, it is limited by the state, and it's going to be what it is, if I articulated that correctly. I might let Mr. Gooch do it. He's much better at the technical than I.
Please state your name.
Douglas Gooch, AGE Engineering.
The bypass was constructed as controlled access, so it's limited access. They've constructed entrances at 1,200-foot intervals, which is Federal Highway Administration guidelines. And they're really, unless you have a federal senator in your pocket, there's never going to be another entrance constructed on there because the Federal Highway Administration says 1,200 foot is a minimum spacing at 55-mile-an-hour speeds. So, yes, the entrances can get more busy, but there will never be more entrances on that route, just not possible.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak in opposition to the zone map amendment?
Quickly, I just agree with Mr. Eglin that it's the first step in development of a strip of property along 2168 that was intended as a north truck and resident bypass around Danville. And I can just see it as it goes in the future, ending up with access streets to the entrances that are there over 1,200 feet and turning into a South Danville bypass. And I want us to avoid that at all costs. And that's why I was suggesting that Danville Christian Academy, which I do totally support, would be better off if we started with a blank piece of paper to lay out the flume and had their entrances come into Highway 33. We would be much better than setting ourselves up to further develop the entrance that's there. Thank you.
All right, this stage, with no other public input, we will close the hearing, the public hearing, and have discussion on the matter.
It is very interesting to me that I'm clarity here, that rectangle, well, it's approximately a rectangle is what we're looking at, the rezoning conversation at this point in time. We've got another event that we'll talk about with the other additional elements on here, but you're right, Jim, the access to 2168, I didn't realize that we were using it in conjunction with onto the property. I just don't go to that side of town anymore. Certainly not when the school's running busy times on here. I always thought it was on the 33 all the time, is what I had in that category. Very interesting arrangement on here. The thing when I go to the campus approach is how many more things you could get on that square footage of acreage that you have is what it is. And if that ends up increasing the number of traffic vehicles, which it likely could, it's okay, but that's what we're talking about here is the impact of being able to do that on the campus business. And the biggest thing I think is the vehicle items on here. Now there's going to be a lot of buildings and a lot of other benefits, but that's all related to the school category, which is great to see the plan. Is it enough to keep us from calling it a rezone? Or are we going to turn down the zoning request is really what we're talking about here. Arrangement on there. I guess I don't have as much concern with it, rezoning this particular property. Now, we didn't talk about it here, but it is interesting. That goes into a different category of number of parking spots you have to put and some other things. If you look at the IBD, the campus, ICD campus arrangement on here, that I'm sure they'll adhere to or transition over to when they do that particular zoning element. I didn't ask the question whether they were going to do that one. Sometimes when you transfer in, you're not required to go through those items, some of those criteria, but I guess if you're remodeling it, we'll deal with that if they give a development plan for the property, should address that.
So my comment is, I live in Colonial Heights. I go up and down 33 a lot. The traffic flow improved with the scheme of having cars come in and only go out the other way at school changes. Before that, it was a very difficult situation during that time of day.
If this stayed agriculture, if it was to remain agriculture, how many buildings could you put on that?
I mean, we have a 25% max lot coverage in the agricultural zoning district, so that includes access roads, parking areas, et
I mean, they're pretty close to it there.
Yeah, well, they'd have about 6 acres, 6.5 acres worth of development that they could do, whatever that square footage is, I can do that on my calculator real quick if you want. But that's what they'd be looking at, so there is a cap. I think as far as their building expansions and parking area, they could probably fit it in, but any of the athletic fields they're looking at, I would assume would put them over. I didn't do the exact math on that, but that's just a rough guesstimate.
So we're talking about the number of
Yeah,
things you
that's
put.
right. It's a school, and they own the property.
And the tax database changes, but that's something else. So,
Well, to move this forward, I would make a motion to approve the proposed zoning map amendment together with, and conditioned upon the general development plan conditions submitted by the applicant and based upon the testimony and documents presented in this public hearing. The proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan and has demonstrated its compliance and it is consistent with the future land use map.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the proposed zoning map amendment. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. All opposed to the motion, please raise your hand. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in favor and 2 opposed. Or 7. 7 in favor, 2 opposed. Keep it score. Motion passes. Okay, next public hearing coming before us is First Southern Lending LLC has applied for a future land use map amendment on 24.826 acres and 3 tracts located at Shakertown Road and 0 Kentucky Highway 1268. The future land use map amendment request is from low-density residential to public. Please state your name.
My name is Douglas Gooch, AGE Engineering, civil engineer and surveyor working on this project. I wanted to leave this map up for just a second here. All the property, including the school, over to the stream, follow the stream to the north, and back out to Bergen Road and back down. That block was purchased by Jess Grail and First Southern Funding. I can say that Jess sold them the property at a very, very, very good price. Sold them the property to develop the school on. And then the bypass comes through. And so we end up with a little corner that's east of the school and west of the stream. It's basically an embankment. Is good for nothing except, on the right-hand corner there, you see this little track there. It's a steep slope down to the stream. It's good for nothing except we could put some embankment on it to get a little more room for the school to make some of the fields fit. The drawing that you all have been seeing with all the athletic fields is kind of a master plan. It's not imminent, it's not anything. It's like Billy Inman came to us and said, let's create a master plan. Let's see what we could do here if everything continues to go well, and not our generation, next generation. What could we do? So that's where that conceptual plan came from. It's kind of our master plan of what we'd like to see happen someday. And so, yes, it bleeds over onto these 2 tracks, not that track, so those 2. The master plan bleeds over onto those 2 tracks. Putting the driveway on that sliver to the north gives us room to have the school where we'd like to have it, so it's access to the other school buildings. It gives us room to move the drive down so that we have parking available for the high school, because it requires more, as the kids can drive, they require more parking. So the master plan did utilize these 2 tracks. Now, I talked to Jess extensively, and Jess Jess gives to the school every year, but he, Jess is a businessman, so he said, what's it worth? I said, well, it's worth quite a bit if we need it really bad and we have the money to use it. So that's where, when we decided to do the conceptual plan and turn into zoning map amendment drawings for DCA, we said, it makes sense at this time to go ahead and talk about this subject. It's a tough subject, obviously tough subject, but we're going to talk about it now and start the process. So that's how we got to where we are. The future land use map shows this as single-family or low-density residential. Now, low-density residential on 25 acres can be considerable houses. So if you start talking about traffic demand, you can increase traffic demand significantly. If you talk about a football stadium, once a week, you can increase traffic demand drastically. Might require police presence as they come in and out, but it'd be once a week. If everybody in school dressed, they wouldn't have a football team yet, but we hope to someday. So this is kind of a long-range goal. You see in the bottom right-hand corner there is the ag field. They're going to have a really extensive ag school here. And so that 2 acres that we have there as field could possibly be moved to the other side of the road in the future. So as we talk about possibilities, that's kind of it. So today we're asking to modify the future land use map for all the property that you kind of see highlighted in light green and circled in blue there. Modify all that in this little sliver here to the institutional zone.
Well, for this application, we're doing the Flume amendment first. Sorry, I don't want to mean to interrupt you, Doug, but right now we're looking at a Flume amendment from low-density residential, which is what the current Flume is showing, to public. And we went through what the public definition is, but basically it's intended for schools, governmental functions and operations such as police and fire, those types of things. It's parks. It's pretty limited as far as what the public use designation is looking at. So if DCA were to, if this lot was to develop in a way to support DCA functions, the public use designation would be appropriate.
It would take it out of
Low-density
low-density single-family.
Yep. So you're looking at a decreased use and density as far as what they're requesting.
And it's been low density for a long time, since it was created.
Yep. I'm assuming it was done before 2168 came through. Now you're looking at 3 essentially remnant tracts for this lot. That really isn't appropriate for single-family residential. When you're looking at this lot here, like they were discussing, you're really not going to get an entrance for this lot to develop as single-family and with the slope and
You're talking
going
about
down
the one
to
down here?
Yeah, I'm talking about this one here, so.
I'm not, never say never. You can-
No, not never, but
People build on the most
it's certainly a
unusual locations.
challenge as
It would
far
be a
as.
challenge, yes.
And it is one tract of land, so that's why we're hearing it all
So
together.
is
but-
it, this one down here on the right, does it taper down to the point, which is what your image on the other page said, or is it in basically that line at the bottom right?
That's the property line there.
So that roughly the creek area or the water area?
The creek is not right on the property. There's
No, it's
one
right there.
small little parcel here that's a remnant tract also from 2168 for this larger farm that's on
Yeah,
the other
that's what I'm
side.
saying. I just,
Yeah.
it's not significant, but just curious. There were 2 different images.
Yeah. So this lot technically isn't in the floodplain. This lot pretty much is entirely
Well,
in the floodplain.
You were where I was heading. There's a floodplain down there. Are we in it? Is the property in it or not?
It's not.
No, our property is not.
Okay,
but
that's fine.
The very easternmost corner, as it gets down to the bottom, might be close, but most of the property is not.
Okay. And the northernmost edge of, say, in the top area there, that is the adjacent to the state property anyway, the highway.
Yes.
So there's nothing else there. We're talking about
Yes.
all that little area from
Yeah.
your from the DCA to the
That is
highway.
all
This
right
is
of
all
way.
right
That
of
you
way.
can buy.
And it has the existing recreational trail
Yes.
here that runs along
We're
that.
not
that comes down.
interfering with the recreational trail in any fashion.
No, no, that's all in the right of way, so it's not on their property.
Okay.
And then we also are asking to change the future land use map for the section just north of this, which again is a remnant tract. It's not, it's got a stream through it. It's not got a lot of potential uses, and we feel like that some use that DCA might have for it is probably the highest and best use for that.
Well, it makes a lot of sense to me what we've talked about in terms of, you know, this piece here and this piece over here. The upper piece looks like you're kind of crossing the Rubicon, you know, and now you're talking about spanning, taking the zone change, or the flume at least, that's what we're talking about now, across on the other side of 2168. And then eventually you're gonna try to tie that into something that DCA would be using. And now you do have a lot of traffic issues, I think, and a lot of just access issues.
I'm with you. It looks like we just went to another area of the county.
Yeah.
They're a long ways
But
from the
it's
main
still-
campus.
It's still low-density residential.
Yes, it is low density
Someone
residential.
could put housing on there today without a zone change.
That is correct. And that low density residential extends
Well,
to the right on this
it-
image.
I think we'd
To
be
be
much
clear, it
better
would
off.
require a zone change. It's still zoned agriculture. This is,
Oh, it's
the
the
future
This is the
land
flume.
use map
This is
is
the flume.
showing it.
Yeah.
My bad.
But they would, you know,
That's
be in compliance with the
Yes.
comprehensive plan
That
as
is
far as low
correct.
density.
We don't have to
residential.
consider that otherwise. But that's what it shows reflects there. It doesn't reflect this low density on the west side of the circle. That's just agricultural area.
It's one tract.
Yeah,
That's
It
why
is.
we're considering it together.
It still has the same future land use. They're both have the same land.
No, I may have missaid what I was explaining here. On the roundabout to the west, if you go that way is agriculture. That
Oh, okay.
it doesn't, that flume doesn't reflect that as low density. It just reflects low density continuing east. If beyond that particular area.
Yeah, this is all low-density residential
Yes, that's what I was
here.
trying to say, is all this is over there.
This is public, this is public, this is all ag, this is county
but-
We're
land
not
here.
discussing anything to the west.
Correct, I'm trying to get my boundary limits, so I understand
No.
we're not discussing anything.
Yeah.
I
I
like
agree.
that picture on the right that it shows, that's a single property.
Yes.
You know, that's just one single property that got bisected by the bypass. So we can't, whatever we do, we gotta do for the whole thing, not a part of it. And I think that whatever we do, we gotta do for the whole thing and not, I don't think we can amend the flume for one part of that property and not for the other.
You're talking about down to the water basin, or the end of that area, that you're talking about from the 33 over where the water is?
Yes, our property does not cross the stream.
Yeah, it doesn't cross
So
the
it'd
street.
just be
That is
everything on the
not
left side of
But
the
it
stream.
crosses the road.
But it crosses the road, that's what I'm
Yes,
saying.
yes.
I would say that,
Or the road crosses through it.
I think when the raid went in it, it became two properties. It may have started out as one, but it's two separate. I mean,
Well, it's 1D.
is it still under 1D? Well, yeah, it is under
It is under
1D, that's
1D.
right. Uh-huh.
One tract.
Very messy.
It seems to me that switching to the public future land use map, and you know we're gonna come right back and ask for a zone change, but switching to the public decreases the risk that you're gonna increase the traffic significantly in the short term anyway, as DCA grows. Now, if you'll notice the right-of-way you can see the right-of-way shaded along from the roundabout east. I can't guarantee this, but I'm pretty sure that the Department of Transportation bought ultimate right-of-way for the 4-lane of the bypass there. So as demand increases, they do have the capacity to increase the capacity of the road by adding 2 more lanes.
I can feel comfortable in saying it's gonna grow,
Yes,
more traffic.
yes. As demand pushes out that way, it is gonna grow. So they do have the ability to expand the capacity of the road.
put this on the table, we're asking for an amendment to the flume, then you're gonna come back and ask for a change to the zone.
Yes.
Right,
Item
so, right, so we're gonna, we're being asked to amend the flume so that you can then come back and ask for this to be zoned, institution.
Yes.
Okay, because right now, if I understand correctly, I just want to make sure, because I'm kind of dumb, the owner can't do anything with that property now. Okay, and so eventually that might be more useful to DCA. And if you want that sticky booger, you can figure out how to do an overpass or whatever, you know, like some schools have done, you know, to get to that piece of land. But it's still going to be far less usage than it would be if somebody tried to put single-family homes, low-density homes.
I would agree with his
I
success.
just want to make sure that that is a reasonable, logical progression. Is that correct?
And there's not a real hard real high bar
It's not,
to get over, to put, low density residential there. The
no,
bar's
it's
low,
not. It's not. And I think
because it's
that-
already in the future land use map.
I
whether it's
agree.
not
This,
zoned.
this right here is going to be the lowest use of that road, the lowest number of cars, going in and out of that area.
Potentially.
Right.
Potential. Proceed.
Well, I just, like I said, that we believe this is given that that DCA is there and is developing, and, given the fact that there's protection to the traveling public, like there'll never be an entrance from either of these properties onto 33. There'll never be another entrance into either of the properties than the one that's 1,200 foot from the roundabout. I just think it makes sense that this is a legitimate request. That's really all I have unless anybody has questions.
Any further questions?
Well,
We'll let the public.
you in essence have three individual areas that's on this flume request.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Although they're
One property
one property, but
in 3 areas.
that's what I was trying to make sure, because otherwise, I get hung up, so.
At this time, again, it's a public hearing, and anyone who wants to speak in favor of the zone change can come forward and speak in favor of the zone change. Please come forward and state your name.
I'm Dan Wells, live in Streamland. I run the bypass frequently, the recreational trail. Are we looking at changing the zone in these 3 tracts to public? Are we looking to change it to ICD?
Right now, all we're doing is changing the future land use map is what we're currently at this juncture doing. So the future land use map,
Future land use, not the zoning.
that will be
That's
another
the next
hearing.
step.
And once this hearing, if this hearing goes in favor of the applicant, then there's gonna be another hearing.
Yes, it becomes very complicated, but there's a series of steps we have to go through.
Thank you.
Please come forward and state your name and address, sir.
I'm a homeowner on Corey Leonard, 2880 Shakertown Road, just north of the roundabout. I'm in favor of changing it to the public use. I'd much assume rather have it public use than have residential housing around me. And we've got a 5-acre tract north of the roundabout there, and that's about it.
All right, thank you,
Appreciate
sir.
it.
Michael Thrasher, 75 Gwynn Island Circle, which is about 2 miles from there. Again, it's different questions. Environmental impact study, which Mr. Smith has already addressed. But my other comment is, right now, neither of those 2 tracks that are right by the roundabout, you can't get a driveway or an entrance in there. The state won't allow it. So you can't do anything. You can't build on it, period.
So they all currently have access.
They have
There can
access.
never be another one.
There's access to it.
There's limited access to it.
No, there's
There's a drive, there's a gravel inlet in there.
it's what's paved back to the property line, but there are two constructed entrances with the bypass that give both properties access. The one to the west does not have access, I mean the east, but the two along the driveway both have access. That one does not.
That one does not.
Right. But the other two do, and they constructed, you know, a well-designed entrance into both properties, and the
So-
one access to the south goes to both properties. They have, it actually touches the edge of both properties, DCA and First Southern Funding.
So there's entrances off of, that the state put in off of 2168
Right.
into both of those right now?
Yes,
Okay.
well-constructed entrances, and they are the actual legal access to the, yeah, right there.
Okay,
That going north, that's access to the other property.
okay, all right.
So they do provide. very good
Under the
access.
flume right now, that would be allowed to.
Correct. And if you, all right, so assuming that this goes through and then they come back and want to do ICD, under a permitted use for ICD, which was on one of your other sides, is single-family detached homes and multifamily.
If we wanted to do that, we could do that now. It's not really the goal of this whole.
No, you could do low-density single-family. You can't do multifamily. Not under agriculture. So I would, if I knew that DCA had in the works to buy those lots, you know, or some agreement to buy those lots if the zone change went through, I'd feel a lot better. But, you know, when you go through and with the number 4 on here, you change it over to ICD, to me, that allows that landowner to say, well, okay, DCA, I'll sell you the 2 lots that are adjacent to you on the, you know, the lower side of the road, but the upper side of the road, I'm going to do what I want to. That's my only comment on that. So, and I guess my other comment is, when you look at traffic flow, I believe right across from what is now the exit to DCA, sometime about a year ago or 9 months ago, you already allowed for development of a special needs school and playground. It's just north of the radio station. So there's going to be another entrance at some point in time that's already allowed right across from DCA on 33. They were allowed to put an entrance on 33. They were not allowed to put another entrance on 2168.
It's classified as a different type of road. Yeah.
Okay, anyone else want to speak in favor of the zone change? Anyone want to speak in opposition to the zone change? Please come forward, state your name and address.
Mark Morgan, 915 West Count Fleet Circle, Danville, Kentucky. I'm not speaking specifically in opposition. I'm wanting to bring some points that have not been made about the future land use map and the comprehensive plan on the current proposal. The future land use map and comprehensive plan they're in the process of being rewritten, and they're going to be revisited within the next year, year and a half. The future land use map along 2168 had little or no public hearing at that time. That's a period that preceded the current situation. And when that property was changed from agricultural to residential, there was little or no public input and opportunity for public input. With regards to today, we have had probably 100%, 100 times more public input on this future land use map than we've had in the past. It's my contention that although the flume was pushed through, it was not pushed through in a proper fashion with public input. So I think we need to look at the current zoning. Your charge as commissioners is to take a short-term and a long-term balanced view of development in our county. And we appreciate the job you're doing when you do that. At present, since all of this is going to be in a state of flux, the whole thing along 2168 within the next year or two, then I think it's premature to automatically assume that the future land use map that we're referring to is going to be a static document without change. I think all of this is going to be revisited, and it may remain agricultural, it may be ICM, it may be residential. But I think that we're making assumptions that are premature when we assume and refer to this as low-density residential as a static status in the future of our county. Thank you.
We have to address the maps as they are before us now. And I do take exception to your comment that it was not vetted publicly. I've been involved in 2 comp plans, and there was extreme public input on 2168 before the highway was ever put in. Great thought and public input on that. And then in the other comp plan, it was a lot of the future land use for that area was backed out. So I do take exception that area has been vetted publicly a great amount over the last 15 to 20 years.
Exactly. And the last time that was done, there was little or no effective public input is my belief.
We had public hearing after public hearing. That's all you can do is have a public hearing. There was enough public input that a lot of what was done previously was reversed. So save for what you want, but to me, it seems to me like the public had some input.
The public had little or no effective.
That's your opinion.
And yours. Thank you.
Does anyone else want to speak in opposition to the zone change or the zone map amendment? Hearing none, at this time we'll close the hearing, public hearing, and any further discussion?
I'm still struggling with the property track, the track that's north of the 2168, and whatever activities may be there if the school's there, and to the south of that. And the traffic, as Mr. Lloyd, you were talking about, the traffic that may go across that road. Not so much turning left and right on here. I haven't satisfied or understand what might happen in the future. I am concerned about traffic accidents or traffic instances that occur. Schools tend to let out in blocks of time. They don't do evenly over a day, and how that handles on here. So I still struggle with that particular topic. And we've tied all 3 of the tracks to the flume discussion, which means I can't resolve 2 of them without resolving all 3 of them together. I don't have any concerns with the flume change south on the main camp, next to the main campus, but I have a concern over the north part of that traffic.
I make a
that track.
motion to approve the proposed future land use map amendment based upon the testimony and documents presented in this public hearing. Proposed flume amendment has been met the directive to amend the flume as outlined in Chapter 9 of the comp plan. Further, I request that this motion include the summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at this public hearing.
Second. We have a motion for approval of the future land use map amendment. Commissioner Griffin, we have a second from Commissioner Ruby. Any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Where the comprehensive plan asks us to choose one of 3 criteria for approving a change to the future land use map, the applicant has selected that they are demonstrating clear compatibility, as we're showing up there. And I think that they have argued this, and you could incorporate this in your motion if you see fit, that Given the road's bisection of the lot and the way that that reduced the land's possible uses and the adjoining institutional or public use, the future land use of greatest compatibility is the proposed public use.
That's fine, we can have that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. I'm counting 5, correct? All, or 6, all opposed, raise your hand. Be 6 in favor and 3 opposed. Motion passes. Our next public hearing is First Southern Lending LLC has applied for a zoning map amendment on a total of 24.826 acres and 3 tracts located at Shakertown Road, Highway 1268, Door County, from agricultural to institutional campus development district. Please state your name.
My name is Douglas Gooch, AGE Engineering. I apologize for getting the two of these processes kind of merged into one, but it's hard for me to keep them separated. But now that we have agreed that this is a public use area, we would like to ask that it be rezoned to the institutional campus development district. Obviously, you've seen the master plan that we did for DCA and how it kind of spills over into this. So that southern tracts, you can kind of see our thoughts on how that might develop. So, you know, I think this is pretty easily identified as a great fit for the DCA campus. Whether it was donated or sold or whatever, we do hope to make this part of that development plan that you see there. Again, I can't, as this gentleman pointed out, I can't guarantee that. I'm not the owner of either of these properties. I just created a master plan that I'm happy with, and I think would be a great addition to the school. If you'll switch to the north side, thank you. We just showed, you know, a possibility for the north side. Someday down the road, should a football stadium actually be there, a Notre Dame style stadium, we might have a major parking lot across the road. And that time it either maybe a pedestrian overpass, maybe an underpass, not sure. Again, this is conceptual. And you know, up on the upper end, we did not have room on the south side for a indoor training facility, but almost every school system now has indoor training facilities for their ball teams to train through the winter here. And so we kind of show an indoor training facility up in the corner. If as I'm sorry, I forgot his name, but as this gentleman pointed out, if this does not develop as a school system and some other public use type activity were to occur here, the drive up to that corner would be exactly like it is there. It's hard to see here, but there's a stream that cuts through the property. So, you know, you're going to have to build a large culvert or a small bridge, however you want to look at it, across that stream to even access the property up near 33. But it could be done. And so that's kind of what we envision as a possibility. You know, there is an ag component of the school. It might be that for the first 15 or 20 years, this was developed as a ag experimental, and they do have environmental programs, and they were turning the pond, or detention basin, they're going to plan to turn that pond into an aquatics type facility for the biology classes and stuff. So access to the stream would be an extension of that training facility, could be an extension of that. Again, these are uses I'm throwing out, but not being able to guarantee at all as just the engineer. But that's sort of what we had envisioned as a possible use. The property as it exists now is of no benefit to anybody, except it's a nice buffer zone, I guess, if you don't want anything to happen at all in the county. It's a buffer zone because as it stands now, and even just with the public future land use map, it's still really not got much benefit until we define a zone other than agricultural. It's too small to do real agriculture on, other than maybe teaching agriculture. You know, for us, it just makes sense that the current zone of agricultural is wrong, and that's one of our conditions that we want to try to, hope everybody agrees with, is that the current zone of agricultural is just not the appropriate zone, and that our request for institutional campus development does match the flume, which we just modified, and I think, so for those two reasons, I think we meet the criteria for the zone change. And so we are asking for a zone change from agricultural to institutional campus development district.
Are you
That's really-
proposing any conditions on your zone change?
I'm not proposing any right now.
What are your thoughts on, so the state has the right of way big enough to expand that road to 4 lanes?
Yes, I think they did by, it's called ultimate right of way, but I think if you notice the red line on the north side of the road, how far it is from the road, they acquired enough property to do a 4-lane.
My point is that they did that so that they could do a 4-lane
Yes.
in the future if they needed to. What are your thoughts on, what are your thoughts about that? If that becomes a 4-lane road, how are you gonna get people across?
It'll be a dangerous situation. I mean, we have pedestrians crossing 4 lanes all the time now, but typically at intersections, not where there are 55-mile-an-hour streets. I think at that point, the school itself would have to start to think about, if they were over there, have to start to think about pedestrian overpass, possibly, you know, we did an underpass at Renfro Valley once upon a time. It actually is an underpass. You go down steps and walk out the other side. So there's enough relief in grade here that probably could work. That'd be pretty expensive. I think the overpass pedestrian overpass, probably the cheapest route. Not cheap. It's the least expensive of the routes. But that is definitely a concern for developing that side over there with DCA.
Was there any other thoughts other than parking lot and a building for that property that you bounced around? Any other thing, rather than putting a load of parkings, another building down there or anything? I'm sort of on your line here. If you don't have people crossing the road, what else you do? No,
You didn't have to show us this today.
yeah.
All you had to do is just ask for the zone change. Now you've made this part of the public hearing, and so there's a difference between unforeseen and unforeseeable. This is foreseeable, but now you've put it into the public record. So my question is then going to be, are you willing to do some kind of a condition that says if you put a parking lot in there, you're willing to go with an overpass?
Or were other thoughts in mind as a way of sorting out so that you don't have to do that? I'm just, it's another.
It was my understanding we had to have a kind of a conceptual plan. For the development of this. In our mind, right now, this is kind of the conceptual plan. But is it a weak one? I guess it's a weak one, but it's,
Seeing 20 houses in there.
Well, I don't know. It's open for a question here because, of course, 20 houses, there'll be another road running parallel to 2168 to be able to get access. And that road could, in theory, run all the way down to this side of the paper. So you have other ways to get on, but you're right.
pretty significant stream to the east. I mean, I don't think anybody can afford to build another bridge like the one that's on the bypass. You have a list of things that could happen in this. You might show them I mean, to not be, have you think we're being sneaky, there's a list of activities that could happen here.
Well, and I'm just asking the question, since you presented what you had on here, are there other alternatives? Because the commissioner is bringing up what I'm concerned
I
about, is
like the
safety.
idea. I happen to like the idea. I'm asking if you guys are willing to put a condition in there that if you obtain the property, that you'd put in either an overpass or an underpass for pedestrians.
If you're going to walk across 4 lanes of road, it's much more dangerous than walking across a rural Route 33 highway.
I do not
Yeah.
have the authority to.
I don't know, I'm just,
Condition, I'm
just
sorry.
asking.
Is this zone change part, I think, you know, when you understand he's put some conceptual out
Yeah.
there, but until they bring something to you, I don't think you can
That's a good point.
to
I
try to
don't
discuss
disagree.
it intelligently until you know what's there.
Yeah.
Now, I would think if you want to make conditions, this is where you start. If you want to make conditions that it's going to be used as a school, put that in your conditions and take out anything that you may have issues with.
That's a great point, Mr. Chair.
I will have to, I would have to
No, you-
check and get back with you, but
You don't have to, I'm just suggesting.
I understand that.
People in a meeting like this, a public meeting, you presented this, and it becomes remembered.
Yeah.
And it comes back to haunt people sometimes. My point was, point out, is that it is just what the commissioner is referring to, is that this is a concept. It is subject to change with these categories. But I'm just curious whether you had anything else. I don't expect you necessarily would. It is a long ways yet. But it is a section of tract of land on the north, the other side of the roadway.
You know, I've kind of made my presentation. I think we meet the 2 criteria, and so.
Would you want to reiterate that?
Yes, again, that the current zone of agricultural is definitely not the correct zone. It's not the appropriate zone. It's leaving the property really useless to the owner and to the community. And I think the industrial campus district zone is appropriate, and it also meets the future land use map directives, and I think it's going to be beneficial to the community with least impact on the community.
Okay, at this time, we'll open the hearing up to people who want to speak in favor of the zone change.
Michael Thrasher, 75 Gwynn Island Circle. Well, since you got through the first one, I'm for it. You know, what you showed up there, that makes me feel a lot better. You know, I have faith that DCA is going to be able to come through and continue to grow. And, you know, again, I think they're a great neighbor. I like the way things are going and the changes that have been made on the road. You know, so that's my input. Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak in favor of the zone change? State your
Corey
name.
Leonard, 2880 Shakertown Road. I'm in favor of the change. I think it's a better use than what it currently is and limits the future of what it could be, that may or may not happen with, my concern is the student's safety if they are crossing the road or anybody crossing the road. I think maybe, which I don't know anything about, Danville Christian Academy or anything like that, if that's the opportunity it goes to, that maybe possibly environmental teaching or even agricultural on the north side of it would be my suggestion to it, rather than parking or something like that. And kids crossing the road, because that's my concern at the point, but I'm in favor of the change to the ICD. Thank you.
Anyone else choose to speak in favor of the zone change? Anyone want to speak in opposition to the zone change, please come forward. All right, seeing none, this time we'll close the public hearing. and open for discussion.
Thank you for recentering me back there. Well, no, I really think that's a good point. I mean, I needed to be recentered there, but, I do think that if they decide to do this, that's not gonna be our, again, I'll just use that term, that's their sticky booger, not ours. And if they decide to do that, I think it won't be us that'll tell them to build the bridge. I think it'll be their own insurance company, probably. That'll tell them to build the bridge. Seriously. You know, when there's a 4-lane road there, I think that's just one of those.
It does present what, during that conversation we had, this list here, we are talking about DCA being a school, I believe is the right category. I would like to put that as part of our condition of the approval, is tie it, the fact that it is a school.
Well,
Is
I don't know
that
how-
acceptable?
I think it'd be nice to have some conditions. I don't, since DCA doesn't currently own the property, I don't know
How that works, yeah.
Right, because somebody else could come out, bid DCA, and put in a prison.
That's what I was getting to.
Like, seriously, somebody could come in and outbid DCA for that, and put in a jail, or a healthcare facility, or an entertainment facility.
Or do we include a religious institution? I mean, that's, but I'm just asking the question here. The categories are there.
Yeah, when a zone change goes through, I mean, the property is entitled to do any use that's permitted within the new zoning district. I mean, I think the way the tracks are laid out and, you know, it's pretty narrow through there, they might be limited just on space alone as far as what they can develop, but if the commission is interested in putting conditions on the types of uses that are permitted, that's within your purview, I believe, so.
I don't know how you go about doing that. Since we're not talking about, you know, if it was just a school, if it was a school, it'd be easy. Because if they own the property and we put conditions on them to use it solely as what the purposes are being used currently, but it not being owned by that entity, I'm not sure exactly. I'll defer to council.
I think the applicant can still agree to conditions as the commission might propose. And maybe you do that based on the school idea that's been offered to you. That, I think the best possible outcome is an applicant that agrees to whatever conditions you're submitting. And I don't know the extent of our ability to get buy-in for
So,
use
can I-
limitations.
Can I ask a question about this? Are you applying on behalf of the landowner?
Yes,
Okay, so not on behalf of the school?
yes.
You're applying on behalf of the landowner, which indicates to me that the landowner is interested in working with the school in the future.
He is very interested, yes.
Okay, not with, well, then I think that, given that, then I think that it is appropriate to put a condition on there.
And
I don't know if it's appropriate, but it's possible.
We would vote on that, decide appropriate or not.
I mean, I feel pretty sure we can strike detention facility, and entertainment. I've liked recreation, I think it needs to stay, but entertainment, you know, when I think of that as like a cinemas or something like that, I think that, obviously, that's not there. Probably multifamily. I don't have the authority to do this, but I'm just thinking back to Jess, and Jess is very generous, but he's also a businessman. And so I have to be careful what I commit him to, but I do think that we can probably strike some of these options to give you all some comfort of, we're not gonna do something crazy out there on that corner. It's really too small to do much of anything with, but I think that obviously fraternities and sororities are not gonna be there, and probably not a college. Multifamily we can get rid of, single-family detached homes we can get rid of. I don't think that's the goal here at all either. But again.
Happy with keeping park and open areas on there and school?
Yes, and, you know, Jess's property, I mean, if you say only thing you can do on is put a school on it, if you did decide to sell it to an adjoining school, the value of it for anybody else to, you know, if you want to buy something, you gotta have $1 more than the other guy who wants it. That other guy's gone, and, you know, so it makes the value of the property really decreased. But I think I can talk with Jess, and we can maybe table this decision to the next meeting, and let me come back with some of these things scratched off that, to give you all comfort, level of comfort.
You have parking over there, how are you gonna get the people across the 4-lane 2168?
Well, again, that's what we've been talking about, what would be the options. I don't, if they had like any kind of facilities over there for the children, I don't think they would walk them across. I think it'd be the, you know, bust across or some way like that. In the event of football games and stuff, they'd be flashing blue lights sitting out there directing traffic, and pedestrians and stuff would be my guess. I mean, you know, we have schools with 1,200, 1,500, Lincoln County's campus there's got 3 schools in it, 2,500 kids or so, and they don't have traffic lights, and they have one way in and out for that, so they have a police officer directing traffic. So in the events where that parking lot would be used, I'd see somebody directing traffic is how I would think that would be handled in the short term. In the long term, it might be a pedestrian overpass or an underpass, but I mean, again, I can't speak to that for sure.
So when somebody's
And it may be,
directing traffic,
I don't know that any of us
stopping
will see the
traffic
4-lane, I
flow
mean,
on
but it is a
2168.
possibility for handling traffic in the future. Yeah. I mean, I'd like to just strike some of those now, but I don't have the authority to do that. If I did it, it wouldn't be, I don't think it'd be binding on my client, because I don't have an agency letter. That's what you'd say, where's your agency
So-
letter? So,
There's a desire to resolve this issue, but you're saying that you really need to talk a little more.
well, I mean, I think if there's some issue up there, you all, you know, the detention facility, I'm pretty sure that's a no-brainer.
There's some of those that absolutely.
Yeah. But, you know, a religious institution, that you know, a place that meets on Sundays and Wednesday evenings when nobody's in the school, that might be a great use for that property. So we'd hate to give that away. You see what I'm saying? But I don't currently have the authority to strike, you know, so if you all think that's a necessity for the zone change, can't do it right now.
Are you asking just to come back and readdress this next month?
Well, I'd like for you just to approve it and I'll be done, but if you can't, yes.
I'd like to have some conditions defined. We could continue this to the next meeting.
Well, can we, I mean, if we make conditions,
Is it legal for us to just table this, to make a motion to table this discussion until they come back with suggested conditions?
It certainly is. Pragmatically, I wonder if we want to air any conditions we want, unless you think your client might be available to attend the January meeting.
It'd be best if we just talked about those now, yes. You know, obviously, multifamily is a problem for everybody, our neighbors. Detention facility is a problem for our neighbors. It would be a problem for me if I was there in the school, does not want a detention center across the road.
somebody making a list?
So we're striking multifamily detention, facility, the entertainment part of no cinemas and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's viewed more as outdoor recreational type entertainment rather than commercial type of entertainment, but if
Yeah, I don't-
we can make that clarification
Yeah,
on it.
I think that one we don't need.
How about what we would just accept instead of what we want to strike? How about school,
Religious
religious
institution.
institution, park in open areas?
Daycare or not?
I think it's a great spot for daycare myself.
Yep.
Well, as a religious institution, they could do any of these things they want.
Yeah.
They could have a daycare, they could have multifamily home or living.
I think the daycare
Group
in there
home.
was into the independent.
it's-
For me personally, I think if we get rid of multifamily, which is obviously a problem, detention facility and that, and the biggest is the recreational entertainment thing, kind of an unknown. to me, that, everything else would be okay.
Well,
Commercial parking lot, no.
that's
Well,
a-
what would they, I mean, I don't know what they
I'm
would
just-
park
I'm-
there for.
I get it, I get it.
I know, it's,
I'm thinking about the.
Yeah, okay,
future,
I think we can get rid of
foreseeable
parking
here, like,
commercial,
you-
yeah.
you-
We can get rid of parking commercial, I feel like.
No gas station. Healthcare facility,
the telecommunications, two categories is equipment, industrial category. You weren't intending for that. Those are separate structures.
If those are utilities, they're exempt from planning and zoning anyway, like the substations, substations.
And those are permitted in the ag zone, which is what it's currently zoned. Some of these are already permitted or conditional uses in the current zoning district, so just something to keep in mind.
And I love the category, temporary use, whatever the heck that's supposed to be.
I
It's
think
really
that's
not a-
usually some type of an event that can get set up, so you'd put up a tent to sell. You see some people selling fireworks or things like
or-
that.
Or a
That'd be-
profit item, firework thing.
Yeah, I think that would be my interpretation of what they're indicating there, but.
I would just propose that we would plan to come back with scratching multifamily detention facility and the recreational entertainment one. And I think that that's a pretty good concession on my client's part. I hope he don't shoot me.
Just a note to take a good look at the zoning ordinance's definition of recreation and entertainment, because it does include lighted baseball and softball fields, lighted soccer fields, so some nuance and carve out to it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put that one back in.
Sorry.
Okay, so we're gonna strike that's the biggest heartburn for everybody, I think, is multifamily and the detention facility. Obviously, we don't want that. So I feel sure that I can get those two removed and come back for approval then. And I'll bring the agency letter.
you're gonna talk to them about single-family detached homes too.
Yeah, we can do that now, but yeah, I'll talk to him about that.
So those ones that you mentioned, you don't foresee an issue, but you're still not.
Yeah, he's not gonna be happy, I think, but, I'm sort of wearing two hats. I'm trying to help DCA because, I've worked in there too, so I'm kind of caught in the middle. It's almost like a little bit of a conflict of interest, but I feel like that I can get him to give up the multifamily.
I was just seeing if there was a way we could go ahead and potentially do something today, but I don't think you're in a position where you can make those decisions for him. So I understand that.
I don't think.
Whatever you're doing for the one piece of property, you're doing for the other two chunks too.
Yeah, it's not,
I think
yeah,
we're
it's
kind
one
of
property.
looking
It's a single property.
But it's gonna affect the other two as well.
It's a
When you
single
get back to
property.
like recreation, you can't.
Mr. Chair, I move that we table the discussion of this zone amendment request until the next meeting when we can have more clarity from the owner of what he's willing to put on conditions.
Okay, we have a motion.
I second that.
Commissioner Griffin seconds that motion. Any further discussion on that motion? All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. The motion passes unanimously, so been tabled to the next meeting, and do we know when what's the time for that?
There's a proposed time,
Well,
January
Jeff, will this
11th.
be
No, January 25th.
January 25th meeting.
Will it be reopening a public hearing, or if I bring a notarized signature that I accept the condition of removing multifamily and detention facility, if I bring that and that suits you guys and you have a vote on it, that's basically all we have to do, you think?
We'll have to open it back up.
Yeah, it's a zone change.
It's-
I mean, we'll open it back up to the point that we are now. So
Okay.
the public hearing part will not be opened up again, will it, or?
I don't know that I've heard a motion to close it, and I don't know whether, did we hear full public hearing on this matter? Okay.
We've been
We did close it, all right. I I would counsel that to the extent that the application changes and there are new dimensions to it, we might hear comment on those changes.
I just wondered.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Our fifth item on public hearings this morning. Carmel and Richard Mazurek have applied for a zoning map amendment on 0.47 acre tract of land located at 637 North Third Street. Danville, the zoning amendment request is from single-family residential to single-family residential R1A within the historic district overlay. Please come forward and state your name and address.
I'm always glad to be the last on the, on the agenda, so I'll try to make this quick. I'm Joni House. I am the Historic Preservation Coordinator for the City of Danville, and I actually live in the great town of Perryville, 1760 Whites Road. Back in July, the Mazureks approached the Danville Architectural Heritage Board with a letter requesting that their house, the Edna Tolliver House, be included in the zoning overlay for the protection of the historic district. In October, the Architectural Review Board met, found that that house was appropriate for this designation, and in November, they codified that by sending to you all a request that that zoning be applied. As you can see, the Lanier Tolliver House meets two of the criteria. It is associated with the architectural enhancement of the city. That was Allen's Addition. That was built as one of the very first subdivisions within the city of Danville as it expanded out. I think the date on that house is approximately about 1890 to 1898 is about what we have figured out. Of course, most of you all know or have heard of Miss Tolliver. That was her family home. She lived there for many years, and now Maple Elementary is Tolliver Elementary. So she certainly is in the community a well-recognized person, and her home has been deemed recognizable by this overlay. The process here is you all would apply the zoning overlay and then make a recommendation to City Commission to actually apply it under the Certified Local Government Protection. And so I'm here representing the Danville Architectural Heritage Board to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions?
Any questions?
Well, I just have a general question.
Sure.
By adding something to the historic district, does it, this is just for information.
Sure.
Does it add, what restrictions does it add on the property itself in terms of what you can do to it? You know, can you put shutters on it? Can
There's a lot of confusion about if you become a National Historic Landmark, there's absolutely no protections
Right.
on the property at all. By doing this, they are adding that to the Certified Local Government under the Danville Architectural Heritage Board. So the guidelines that apply to everything else or every building under that would also be applied to this building as
So
well.
this is much more restrictive
Yes,
than
sir.
a historical
Yes.
designation?
Yes, sir. Surely there's more.
Are there any more improvements to the building that need to happen after this point in time?
And I've went and talked to the Mazureks quite extensively. They're looking to do window work on it. They're looking to basically do a complete restoration on the house. So most everything that we have talked about doing will fall within those guidelines.
Yeah, windows are always most difficult.
Windows are, as you say, the sticky
exact
booger on
replication.
windows.
Yeah.
So, but the Mazureks are very, very committed to putting the house back as it historically was. I suspect at some point they'll take the vinyl off of it and put the wood back on it, or a composite that's also within the guidelines. And this will also help them if they want to approach the tax credit program through the federal
Yes.
government and state government, which is one of the reasons we're talking about this now.
Louisville has a tremendous stock of windows in Albany, New Albany in Indiana, if you ever want to know, of
Okay.
historic windows.
That's good to know.
Yeah, 'cause I
That's
did a-
always a problem
I
with
did in
windows.
1890s and had to replace 3 windows.
Oh, boy.
They have authentic glass, which is a big ooh.
Who is the vendor?
This city of Louisville.
The city of Louisville.
The city of Louisville under their historic society. So go through the
Fantastic.
historic society and they'll connect you to a location.
Okay.
And they had like a 9,000 square foot house building of windows.
Oh,
And
that's good to
New
know.
Albany required in theirs. Most of downtown New Albany is from the 1900s and earlier.
That's good to know, because everybody, that's always a problem,
That is,
finding
I
windows.
was going to give you that one, because otherwise you just shake your head.
Thank you, thank
Yeah.
you.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am?
Does this have any impact on other homes that are surrounding this location?
No, ma'am, none at all, unless those property owners come to the Architectural Heritage Board and request this designation as well.
Will there be a fencing or any particular outside railing? There's all sorts of historical characteristics around
Not that
these
I'm
houses.
aware of.
I'm not aware of this house either, having. been
There,
curious.
there is a wrought iron fence in the front of it. They have no intention of removing it. However, if they did, that would be something that would have to come in from the Architectural
Okay, so
Review
it
Board.
does fit
Yes.
that criteria?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It does.
So it's not just only the house, it is the grounds also?
Yes,
That's what I was trying to
anything that
get
can
to.
be viewed from the public right of way,
Okay.
or anything attached to the structure.
Even if it's behind the back and can't be seen in the normal fashion?
It depends on what it is.
Okay.
You know, if it's something that cannot be viewed, if they wanted to put a patio or something of that nature in, that probably would not come under the purview. If they're going to do actual structure changes where they're going to knock out a back wall to put that in, then it would come under the purview of the Architectural Heritage Board because it's attached to the structure itself.
Yeah. New Albany, Indiana were three sides, front, right side, left
Mm-hmm.
side, not the back.
It depends on what,
Yeah.
what your specific design guidelines are. At this time, Danville's pretty fair in letting you do what you need to do to your house, unless it's a giant change that can be viewed from the public right away, if you're in the district. Now, the Rhodes House and the McClure Barbie House are also standalone landmarks within
Yes, they are.
Danville. Mhm.
Very pretty.
As you know, Mr. Baird.
Okay, any further questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much.
Mhm.
And this is a public hearing. This time, anyone who wants to speak in favor of this
Amendment?
the zoning map amendment, please come forward and state your name. Seeing none, anyone who wants to speak in opposition, please come forward. And this time, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and open for discussion amongst the panel.
I don't see any concerns.
Need a motion?
Well, I'll make a motion that the linear Tolliver House be added to the Danville, Kentucky Historic Overlay District.
We have a motion. And Commissioner Sweet seconds Commissioner Manning's motion. Any further discussion of the motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just to add, if Mr. Manning is okay with this, that this motion conforms to the comprehensive plan, given maintenance of the current residential zoning, adding the preservation protections of the overlay clearly aligns with the historic preservation goals in the comp plan.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're okay with that on your second? Okay, so that's our motion. All in favor? Motion passes unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Personnel Committee report. Do we have anything?
No, we do not.
Finance Committee report,
Nope.
other new business?
Yep.
We have something,
Yeah, our Farmers Bank credit card that we have was in Steve Hunter's name, so I switched it over to my name, but they need something on letterhead and in official minutes, basically having you guys authorize me as the new principal of the account, if you guys are comfortable
I
with
think
doing
let's
so.
go ahead and adjourn.
I make that motion.
Motion. So we have a motion from Commissioner Griffin and a second from Commissioner Ruby. All in favor of the motion? Motion passes unanimous. So just, I guess, get whatever we need and either check the vice chair or I, one, can sign that.
Yep, I think it might have to wait until the minutes are approved at the next meeting before I
Okay.
can send it out. I did get a new card in, it's just a matter of being able to completely remove Steve Hunter from the
But
account.
you having to use the card for anything in the meantime?
We've used it for mailings and such, but, so it works with my name on it. It's just a matter of cleaning everything up so Steve's no longer on the account. So it can wait till January. We'll wait till the minutes are approved and then I'll send it over to them.
Thank you. And, 2023 meeting dates? Everyone got that? We need to discuss that? We need to-
Yeah, we kept them the same, fourth Wednesday at 9 a.m. With the filing deadlines, I did just want to note that I'm not going to be available for the May meeting, so I want to let you guys know that up front. I have a family commitment, but beyond that.
January 25th meeting?
Yeah, the May.
No, I will be missing that one as well.
May meeting?
Yep, the May
Oh, May.
of 2023, sorry.
Lord, I don't know.
Which, I've got my schedule here somewhere.
That's gonna be around, somewhere around Memorial Day, I'm assuming.
It is, it's the week before Memorial Day, I believe.
Do we want to look at our December meeting? I mean, we always change.
next year?
Yeah, we always
Well,
change it.
The November one as well, is what we
Yeah.
did this year.
Yep, I think, Henry might need to speak on this if we approve it as such at this meeting, if it's different from what, would it still be a special called meeting, or?
It might be more tidy to handle it as a special called meeting and to assess what our schedules are at that time. I think the statutes like it when you have a regular meeting date that falls on a specific day.
And they don't care if we have special meetings in place of the regular scheduled meeting.
They do not. But we're allowed to cancel meetings, yeah.
statute, isn't it?
Right.
It was a good idea.
Try to help.
Any further discussion? So we need a vote to approve the schedule?
Yes.
Okay, need a motion?
I can't find my schedule. Do we have 6 weeks between the November and December again?
No, we were just discussing that. We can't, we're gonna have to address, just like we did this year, and have a special meeting.
We can't just set a schedule now and advertise it?
The Open Meetings Act likes a regular recurring date rather than pick and choose the dates and set a schedule. I think that's the preferred
What we're
means.
saying is we just need to approve this and then.
Then we'll have to make it.
Yeah, change it at the end of the year later.
You gotta do it the hard way.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so, did we get a motion?
I make a motion to approve this meeting schedule for 2023.
All right, have a motion from Commissioner Davenport and a second. All right, all in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, refunds.
Yes, on I think my second day here, I made an error in charging Kelly Griffith $50 to record a plat. I didn't realize we had already included it in our fee. So I need your authorization to issue a refund on that $50. So that's what we're looking at. I apologize for the mistake on that one.
Well, you got your you got your only mistake of the year.
You're only allowed one year.
I don't know, but
so
only-
you're done for this year.
Yeah, there's so much left.
Did it early.
I'll take
I
it.
like it.
We need to make a motion for that, Henry?
Yes, please.
Okay.
So moved.
Got a motion from Commissioner Ruby.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Davenport. All in favor? All right. You can refund the $50.
Thank you.
Any announcements that need to be made?
I do not have any.
Anyone? Need a motion to adjourn. Commissioner Sleep makes the motion, Commissioner Douglas seconds it. This meeting is now adjourned, and I'm 45 minutes away from a free bottle of bourbon. Commissioner Boyd said I could get this done by 11.
Wow.
He give me a bottle of bourbon.
Aw.